The Hardcore Challenge is back, and this time it's for the Burning Crusade. With TBC Anniversary Edition launching, it'll once again be time to go again and see how far you can get. If you played Hardcore during Vanilla Classic or on the official Hardcore servers, this is going to feel both familiar and refreshing at the same time, because I feel as though TBC brings enough to change the leveling experience, the class design and the endgame systems in ways that even if you've done this before, it's still going to feel relatively new. Today I'm going to talk about exactly how to play TBC Hardcore, what the rules are, why the new races and zones are ideal for this challenge, the interest of the new professions, and overall what makes TBC as a hardcore game feel different from vanilla, and why this might be a perfect time for you to jump back into the challenge. So TBC Hardcore isn't happening on any dedicated servers as we've had for the past few years. Instead, you'll be rolling on the regular PvE anniversary realms either on EU or NA depending on your region. Blizzard has re-enabled the NPCs that allow you to pick up the Soul of Iron buff. These NPCs were first added way back in Season of Mastery in 2021, just after the original TBC Classic release. For Horde players, you'll find them in Orgrimmar and the Undercity, and Alliance in Darnassus and Ironforge. Now the Soul of Iron buff is just cosmetic, but it's very much better than nothing, and it shows that you've never died, so you can at a glance tell whether somebody is a real hardcore character or not. You'll also need the Hardcore TBC add-on, which you can just grab from CurseForge. This add-on has the official rule set and tracking for your character built in, similar to how the vanilla add-on worked way before we got official servers. The rules are pretty straightforward. Death equals delete, you must have the Hardcore TBC add-on enabled at all times. Trading is allowed this time, but you can only trade within your guild or with other guilds that your GM has specifically allowed. The auction house is completely off limits, and finally dungeons that are prior to max level are on a daily lockout that resets at 10 AM server time. The trading rules are actually way more lenient than the original Hardcore community rules. Back during the unofficial Hardcore days, it was typically zero trading whatsoever and everyone was completely self-found. Now you can trade within your guild and with other approved guilds, which means you don't have to be fully self-found unless you want to be, I suppose. The reason for blocking the auction house is pretty obvious though. Since these aren't dedicated hardcore servers, you could just go to the auction house with what little silver you have and buy a ton of upgrades, which would not be within the spirit of the challenge. And for finding a guild, you just ask in general chat after you log in, it shouldn't be too difficult. And I think despite us not having official servers, at the end of the day, Hardcore is a self-assigned challenge. If you can't help but cheat in a challenge you've set for yourself in a video game, maybe this just isn't for you. And it's always been primarily a leveling challenge. I feel as though a lot of people really think about the super late game obstacles that will come up and fail to realize that most characters meet an untimely end somewhere around level 20 or so. But for everyone who wants that genuine sense of risk and reward in a new challenge, this sounds pretty interesting to me. TBC of course introduces two new races, Blood Elves for the Horde and Draenei for the Alliance, along with each faction now having access to the Paladin and Shaman classes, and both starting zones are legitimately excellent hardcore experiences. We'll start with the Blood Elf experience. You'll begin in the Eversong Woods before moving on into the Ghostlands, and Ghostlands is equally one of the most challenging and rewarding zones for hardcore players. You've got a lot of high-speed enemies such as lynxes, you have fast respawns in certain areas, it's full of undead which of course you can't fear, and there are roaming elites too that can catch you off guard. But with the danger comes rewards, and the rewards are absolutely worth it. The new quest rewards for TBC starting zones are genuinely good, and you're given a choice of items which makes sense for whatever class you'll be playing. There is also a new faction tied to the leveling zone called Tranquillian. You'll want to make sure you're visiting the Quartermaster as you level this reputation up, because at each new tier you'll be able to buy a pretty cheap item that's super powerful, and by the time you finish the zone you'll be exalted as well. Ghostlands even has elite quests that are absolutely worth doing with a small group, and the end of zone quest rewards are some rare quality weapons. By the time you finish the Ghostlands you'll be around level 20 already, which is some great progression, and it's going to save you a lot of running through the Barrens. For Draenei you'll start on As Your Mistyle before progressing back and forth between there and Blood Mist style. These zones mirror the Blood Elf experience in terms of quality and quantity of content. The Draenei zones are both packed with great quest chains and gear upgrades. Also, if you're rolling a shaman, you'll complete all of your totem quests in these two zones instead of having to run all the way across the map. The earth, fire and water totems will all be completed by level 20, however you'll have to venture out of this zone and come back to do Call of Air because you need level 30. And similar to Ghostlands, you'll be around level 20 by the time you finish this zone. Both starting experiences are very much worth a playthrough either way though. Next up, since you can trade with guildies in TBC Hardcore, profession choices just became a lot more interesting. It's going to be much easier to level things like alchemy or engineering when you can trade, and of course there is the new profession that's been introduced, jewel crafting. And jewel crafting for hardcore characters, as it would turn out, is pretty good. First, let's talk stone statues. These are new items jewel crafters can make that provide healing over time. There's rough stone statues at low skill levels that heal for 120 over 8 ticks, coarse stone statues that heal for 225 total, 15 health over 15 seconds, and heavy stone statues for 375 total healing. There are higher ranks as well. Now if you compare that to a standard healing potion that's 280 to 360 health, they're actually not bad. But here's the thing that makes them extra interesting is they're on a separate cooldown from your healing potion. And if you're going mining to complement jewel crafting, which you'll basically have to, then you'll be getting rough stone that you'll be stockpiling up that you can use on these. For hardcore, having multiple sources of healing can absolutely be the difference between life and death. And being able to drop a stone statue is going to allow you to tank just that little bit longer. Beyond stone statues, jewel crafting provides early access to some really good rings and necklaces. In classic WoW, typically you don't get good rings or neck upgrades for a very long time. Now I will say this does improve in TBC and Blizzard give these items away a bit more than they used to, but still when you have jewel crafting you can get one of these items for certain. For example, at the lowest 75 skill you can craft a brilliant necklace using 4 bronze bar, a bronze setting and 1 moss agate. This gives you a ton of stats for the level range. Another good one is Ring of Silver Might that only needs 2 silver bars and gives you 3 strength and 4 stamina. Obviously you can wear 2 of these as they're non-unique and they're rings. And for casters, Ring of Twilight uses 2 shadow gems and 2 bronze bars, and that has 4 stamina and 4 intellect. Later on there are some really interesting on-use items too, such as Aquamarine Pendant of the Warrior. This gives you 20 attack power and 15 stamina to your entire party. Or what about Figurine Golden Hair that gives you an 8% movement speed boost passively, that's the same as having the move speed enchant on your boots at all times, and it has a mini sprint effect on use with a freedom component on a 20-minute cooldown. Items like these are what makes hardcore so interesting. Usually all these niche items would just be forgotten about or dismissed as not worth the effort of making, but in hardcore where the challenge is right from level 1 to level cap, these are things you're gonna care about and stop to make them. The one thing I will have to admit, because I'm sure to see comments about it, is jewel crafting overall better than engineering for hardcore? Well, the answer still is probably not, but I do think it is a very good profession, and if you're playing a hardcore character, especially a Draenei who get bonus jewel crafting skill, you should absolutely give it a try out and see what you think. On top of that, TBC brought massive updates to class design, fixing or improving specs that felt weak during vanilla leveling, and adding so many powerful capstone talents that completely changed how certain specs played. Just think about some of the big new headline class abilities that you get. Retribution Paladins with Crusader Strike, Shadow Priests with Vampiric Touch, Mages get Summon Water Elemental, Warlocks get access to Felguard, and so many more. These aren't just minor improvements, they're build-defining abilities that fundamentally changed these specs. And there were certain specs in vanilla that were so underwhelming, even during leveling people tended to never pick them. And I'm gonna have to pick on an example here, such as the Balanced Druid, whose ability to do practically no damage whilst running out of mana was second to none. In TBC, this is a much more viable spec to level with. But beyond these new abilities, there were so many crucial baseline changes that applied to a bunch of different classes. Paladins have Taunt and Consecration baseline, Mages mages get ice block without having to go down the frost talent tree, warriors get stance mastery so they can save a bit of rage when they swap stances, and so on. The talent trees themselves were reworked to still maintain that classic feel whilst giving you something genuinely impactful to look forwards to at level 50 when you reached your capstone talent. For hardcore specifically, these class changes mean that more specs are really viable for solo leveling. You're not pigeonholed into thinking, I have to play an enhancement shaman or I have to play a feral druid if you wanted to level up for those classes. There is a lot more choice now, and I think that's going to be something worth experiencing. TBC also didn't just update the world with Outland, it also made significant changes to the vanilla world that directly impact the leveling experience, which is especially important for hardcore players. One of the most appreciated additions is the new flight paths. There's a new flight point in Northern Stranglethorn Vale for the Alliance, and equally one in Southern Felwood for Alliance players. These two save an enormous amount of time running through those two zones, which took a notoriously long time to traverse. Dustswallow Marsh also got a major update with a new quest hub called Mud Sprocket. This comes with about 60 new quests for both factions for players around the 35 to 40 level range. Another big change for hardcore players is what happened to elite zones. So places such as Jinthralor in the Hinterlands or Strongard Keep in the Arathi Highlands are no longer categorized as elite. The mobs there are now normal, which means they're much easier to go and clear solo. Whilst there is a debate over whether that's good or bad, it certainly makes things easier and safer. There are still of course elite quests in the game, but they're much more focused around go and kill one elite mob instead of being sent to a subzone where everything is elite. The updated quest rewards are also notable. Dungeon quest rewards were bumped up in quality, making them even more worth doing, and several dungeon boss drops were re-itemized or upgraded in quality too. Quest experience was increased for level 30 to 60 content, and you need less XP per level between 20 and 62. On top of all that, you can also buy your mount at level 30 as well, down from 40, and it will be a bit cheaper. So overall, though TBC is focused on the Outland content, there are a bunch of changes that came to vanilla too. But the biggest reason for me why you should try hardcore is just how it forces you to approach the game completely differently. And whilst TBC isn't too distant from vanilla in terms of its core systems, it's changed enough to genuinely be new and interesting. Low-level content will remain relevant and active because there's always a mix of new players leveling and working on ults. The new rules around trading make leveling professions and sharing items way easier than it was in original hardcore. Being able to trade within your guild has huge benefits and encourages you to group up and trade items between one another. Another benefit for hardcore is that you really don't need to min-max that much. Most characters just aren't going to make it to max level. If you're playing a suboptimal race for doing DPS at level cap, it's not a big deal. You can just genuinely roll whatever class and spec you think is fun or interesting and take it on as a personal challenge, and I think that freedom is refreshing. The updated classes and specs mean that more things are genuinely viable. You're not stuck saying, okay, I pretty much have to roll this for leveling because it's just so much better than my other damage dealing specs. Oh, and on top of that, there's dual specialization, so you can go into 2 different specs. Another benefit of hardcore is that prestige will return to late game content in a way that it typically doesn't in classic. In TBC during 2021 and 2, loads of people had BIS gear, legendaries, and had cleared all the content. Raiding in TBC became pretty routine. It was more challenging than vanilla, but a lot of people got through it. But imagine seeing a hardcore character with TBC heroic dungeon gear or raiding gear, Ashes of Alar, Warglaives. Imagine being that guy. That being said, you really shouldn't worry about raiding, as I've mentioned a few times. The game is still very good without it. The leveling experience, the challenge of getting to 70, and the community interactions, that's where the core of hardcore lives. It's always been about that. Raiding is a bonus if you're good enough. Hardcore also makes the game become slower paced. You take more care with pulls, you're trading items that drop with guildies, you're helping each other out, and you're playing around a community. It's not all about rushing to maximum level and playing as though the game is a critical path where you can get BIS gear and log out as soon as possible. It's just a different way to play, a slower paced one, and I think for a lot of people, a pace which is more fitting. But of course, once you reach Outland, assuming everything you do and start questing through Hellfire Peninsula, you'll find the challenge will ramp up significantly. The mobs will hit harder, the quest design is far less explored on the hardcore challenge, and there are plenty of elite quests too, and of course Mr. Fellreaver who's waiting for you ominously. Leveling from 60 to 70 will be the ultimate test of your hardcore skills and your ability to assess a situation and play safe. But that for me is what makes it exciting. Getting a character to 60 proves that you still got it, getting it to 70 is proof that you've mastered the challenge. Overall, I think TBC Hardcore is definitely worth checking out. The combination of TBC's improved class design, better zone flow, and the hardcore rule set creates something that both feels nostalgic and worth coming back to, and fresh at the same time. If you're interested in hearing more about TBC Hardcore, drop a comment down below letting me know and I'll see what I can do. During TBC Classic, I did level every class from 60 to 70 in the open world, so I know a thing or two about where is dangerous during this expansion. But let me know what you think about the challenge and whether you're going to give it a go this time around. And, as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.